Great products are always simple. Like this big pen, a clear plastic tube with ink and a ball that writes on any surface without leaking. Or this post-it note with enough adhesive that it can stick to any surface again and again, but not enough to leave a residue. Or any Apple product with its clean lines, flat edges, and seamless aluminum hiding complex circuits and processors, all designed to give you a seamless experience. And all of these products have been sold billions of times just because of their simple and timeless approach. But while these products conquer the world through simplicity, most companies go the opposite direction. They start simple, like them, then they pile on feature after feature, button after button, until their products become unrecognizable. I mean, look at Brown. Dieter Rams created some of the most elegantly simple designs ever made. But over the decades, complexity crept in. And now, they look like this. And the same thing happened to cars. Once, the shapes were clean and the dashboards had only the essentials. But today, they have multiple screens, tons of controls, and all of them have complex, sharp curves. So why does this happen? Is simplicity really that hard to achieve? And if it is, why can some companies do it effortlessly while others keep struggling? And more importantly, how do you can achieve simplicity in your design? To answer all these questions, we have to go a bit deep and understand why humans are so obsessed with simplicity in the first place. It all comes down to how our brain works. Every single day, your brain processes thousands of decisions, choices, and pieces of information. And just like your phone, it has a limiting processing power. And at some point, it runs out of battery. That's why, whenever you have a lot of new information coming in your way, like a grocery shop, or while traveling, or starting a new job, you feel exhausted without doing any physical work. All because of this cognitive load on your brain. And the same thing happens when we use products. The ones that keep this mental load to a minimum are the ones that people love. Like, look at Google's homepage, just a white page with a search box. And now compare that to Yahoo's homepage from the early 2000s. It was cramped with links, ads, news, weather, everything. And now you know why Google won. Netflix learned this the hard way. They used to show viewers endless rows of movies, shows, and trailers, so people would scroll for 20 minutes and end up watching nothing. Then they simplified everything, and now they only show you a few personalized recommendations, which results in we all binge watching series all weekend. And the same is true for physical products. The products which look clean with less controls or components are more preferred by the user. I mean, the whole movement of minimalist design is popular for the same reason. It lowers your cognitive load, gives you only essential choices, and make you think less. Whether it's a TV remote, a coffee machine, or a camera. But simplicity isn't just about having fewer buttons or fewer features. It's also about how our brain sees and organizes information. Gestalt psychology says that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Or in simple terms, our brain likes to perceive things in unified groups rather than different parts. The simplest example is in your phone. If you go in settings, all connectivity options like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, airplane mode, all are grouped together. Then display settings like brightness and text size are in another group. Notification and security are in their own group. That's why it feels natural to look for Bluetooth near the Wi-Fi feature, whether in your phone or in your laptop. Now imagine if Wi-Fi was at the top, Bluetooth was hidden at the bottom, and aeroplane mode was buried deep in security. All of us will go nuts if every company starts doing their own way. And the same logic applies to physical products. Like in a well-designed car dashboard, climate controls are grouped together, media controls in one cluster, and driving function in another. If these were scattered randomly, you would spend more time searching for these buttons than driving. Or the kitchen stove. Usually, the burners map directly to the knobs. Front burners to the front knobs, back burners to the back knob. Or if they are in a line, they usually go in a clockwise or anti-clockwise mapping. And keyboards are one of the best examples of grouping. Letters in the middle, numbers on the top, and arrows in one block. One fun fact. Do you know that every country has slightly different keyboards? And I didn't knew that before I started hopping countries. Like, here's the US one, here's my Italian keyboard, here's my German, and here's a Danish one. They exist because every language has extra letters or symbols, and they need extra space. But no matter the layout, the grouping is always consistent. Letters in the middle, numbers on the top, and arrows in one block. That's what makes them usable. And sure, some countries switch things up. I'm looking at you, Germany, for swapping the Y and Z. But the overall point is that we humans prefer products which are less stressful for our brain, either by reducing elements or by organizing them in a consistent, easy-to-grasp layout. And most companies at least start with these instincts. They make a pilot product that's simple, focused, and clear. But as the company grows, simplicity starts to fade, and products becomes more and more complex. And the first reason for that is feature creep. See, in the beginning, companies don't care about checking all the boxes. They care about showing what's unique in their product. So usually it has 2 or 3 standard features and everything else is stripped back. And because it satisfies the unique value proposition, it often gets the initial success. But later, the pressure to compete kicks in. And suddenly, they want to add everything their competitors have. So before, the product was about focus, but then it becomes more about coverage. And that's where complexity sneaks in. Because keeping things simple takes a lot of engineering effort. The perfect example is Dyson. You all know the air purifier with bladeless fan. But the amount of time and effort it took for them to hide all this complexity in the base and make it look minimal is insane. And the same goes for the new pencil vacuum. The size of this tiny motor producing enough suction to vacuum all the dirt is really mind-blowing. And there are similar examples like the Apple Pencil, the Aura Ring, or the Meta glasses. All of them hide extreme engineering behind simplicity. But most companies don't have these kind of resources. So their products end up heavier, bulkier, and more complicated. Because with smaller budgets, it's easier to keep adding parts, buttons, or modules than to spend months optimizing what's already there. But sometimes even big companies fell into this trap because of the second reason, and that is when non-product people are in charge. See, most of the times the demand of features come from marketing or product owners. They always look at competitor benchmarks or customer surveys, but they rarely consider how to integrate them without clutter. And if you don't have a strong product leader, no one pushes back. And that results in a few extra buttons or a few extra grams of weight or another random design element just to satisfy these needs in the next generation of the product. It doesn't feel like much, but layer by layer, the product drifts from its original simplicity. Meanwhile, design team may propose bold and groundbreaking ideas, but if they don't align with the data or with the company's trend-chasing goals, they never get approved. And the irony is that data and consumer insights can tell you what's missing, but they'll never give you another iPhone or another ChatGPT moment. Because consumers don't always know what could be better until they see it. And the third reason is that even inside design teams, simplicity is really hard. Designers and engineers are always pushing from two opposite sides. Designers want everything to fit and look seamless within their vision. And engineers want visibility, more space, better heat dissipation, easier assembly. And of course, anything is possible if you just keep adding more and more components. But the real challenge for engineering is to solve the problem without adding extra complexity. One of my favorite examples is IKEA. The products are designed with neutral, simple shapes using the least number of components, and they have a lot of constraints like keeping costs low, assembly easy, and still make a furniture that looks and works well for millions of people worldwide. That's extreme discipline in design and engineering working together. Or take Nest thermostats. Traditional thermostats had dozens of buttons and bulky enclosures. So they forced engineers and designers to shrink everything into a compact single dial interface. Simple on the outside, hard work on the inside. And this shows us a pattern. The simpler a product looks, the more effort it usually took to make it that way. But how can you achieve it? How can you make and design things with simplicity? I think there is a simple 3-level solution to this. First is the process, second is the team, and third is the leadership. So first, the process. Simplicity has to be baked into every single step of how you work from the start. You can't just add it at the end like a paintwork. A few months ago, I made a video about essentialism, and I think we can follow a similar process to achieve simplicity. And the first step in that process would be to start with essential constraints. See, when we start, there's an endless possibilities of what a product can do. Therefore, it's very important to constrain it. And not in terms of technology, but in terms of what it will do. My favorite example is the original iPod. They constrained it to one single objective: 1000 songs in your pocket. And that single boundary defined the entire product. The selection of the Toshiba hard drive, the overall size, the battery life, the interface, and the iconic click wheel. So you might ask, how can a constraint of 1000 songs determine the interface and the wheel? So in the earlier days, the usual Walkman used to have cassettes with 10, 20, or maybe 50 songs. And you can navigate them using just the buttons. But with the 1000 songs, you might need a different interface, like a wheel to scroll, or a screen to see the list of songs, or organize your playlists. So every decision served that one line, and that's why it felt simple, powerful, and inevitable. Now, even when you constrain the functionalities and features, you can't make everyone happy. That's why the second step of the process is to design for the 80%, not the 100%. Here's what I mean. Before the Kindle, e-readers from Sony or Barnes & Noble tried to be everything. They were web browsers, music players, even mini tablets with color screens. Sure, they look advanced, but they missed the point that most people just wanted to read. But Amazon understood that and focused on the 80%. People who wanted a simple paper-like reading experience. No backlight, no apps, no distractions. And more importantly, a battery that lasts weeks. And that focus worked. Because when you design for the majority, you make the experience better for almost everyone. And the same is true for Canva. It didn't try to replace Adobe or Microsoft. It just focused on what 80% of people actually needed. Simple templates, drag and drop editing, and ready-to-share exports. And suddenly, millions of people who never called themselves designers could design confidently. And of course, making products is an iterative process. You will never get it right the first time. So the third step would be to simplify with every version. And honestly, no one does this better than Apple. Every version of their product is simpler and better than the last one. The MacBook moved from multiple panels to a single unibody block of aluminum. Fewer parts, cleaner design, and stronger build quality. And now, even the new iPhones have the same unibody. Then, the Apple Pencil went from a lightning port that stuck out awkwardly to a seamless magnetic attachment. And MagSafe turned the messy idea of wireless charging into something that just snaps and works. They keep refining until there's nothing left to fix. And of course, sometimes you get it wrong, like the touch bar in the MacBooks. But the good thing about this third step is that you can always strip it in the next version. That's the art of simplifying with every version. But for this process to work, there is a second crucial level, that designers and engineers must be the part of the same team from day one. And I mean literally the same team. Not like designers finish the design, then hand it to the engineers, because that handoff model is exactly where products become complicated. Tony Fadell talks about this all the time. For the Nest thermostat, he made a team with industrial designers, electrical engineers, software developers, all in one same room from day one. So no separate departments, no scheduled meetings, same room, same whiteboard, and same problems. So when the designer says that I want this to be really thin, the engineers doesn't say it can be done. They might say that, okay, the battery is the thickest component, and then maybe we can use a different battery chemistry. And the designer says, okay, sure, but then we need to rethink the charging circuit. And then the software person says, but if we optimize the algorithm, maybe we can reduce the power consumption and still use a small battery. So see how that works? They're solving the same problem together, keeping in mind the constraints that they had set up in the first process. You remember the iPhone's original engineering design problem? Yes, that controversy about it holding it wrong. That happened because antenna engineering and industrial design weren't fully integrated. The design team wanted thin metal edges. And then the engineers said, okay, that would work. But they didn't fully explore together how users would actually hold the device until it was too late. Now compare that to later iPhone designs, where antenna bands are integrated into the design from the start. And that came from a tighter collaboration between teams from day one. This same team approach prevents the design in a vacuum problem. But even if you get the process right, and then you get the right team to execute it, if the third level of the leadership is not product focused, none of it matters. Because simplicity isn't just a design decision, it's a leadership decision. It takes discipline to say no when every competitor is adding more. It takes clarity to protect the product's focus when everyone around you wants more growth or more engagement or new features. You know, WhatsApp and Skype are two perfect examples of this. For years, the founders of WhatsApp refused to add stories, refused to add channels, and refused to add tons of features that competitors had. They kept it focused on simple messaging. Yeah, it's true that they added some features, but only after WhatsApp was so dominant that they could do it without risking the core experience. The leadership team understood that their strength was simplicity, and then they defended it even when it meant slower growth or less features compared to competitors. Now compare this to something like Skype. Remember when Skype was the simplest way to make video calls? You opened it, clicked a name, and started a call. But then Microsoft bought it, and they kept adding Microsoft account integration, Facebook integration, or Skype for Business, SMS, Skype credits, bots, channels. The leadership team tried to make Skype everything for everyone. And what happened? People moved to Zoom, FaceTime, or even WhatsApp video calls, because all of them were simple, focused solutions. And Skype lost by trying to win everywhere. And now it's sad to see that even WhatsApp is doing the same thing under Meta. Simplicity takes time to pay off. The market doesn't always reward immediately the products which are simple. Sometimes leaders have to trust the long-term value of simplicity, even when short-term metrics suggest otherwise. They have to understand that and communicate that. That's why simplicity is important. And it's difficult if people in leadership are data or feature focused. I have another example to prove this point. Remember in the old days how Steve Jobs used to introduce products? He used to take iPod out from the small pocket in the jeans, or the envelope which was lying on the stage all the time with MacBook Air inside it, or the famous tagline of 1000 songs in your pocket. And now product launches have turned into feature lists and performance charts. 20% faster, 15% brighter, 2 hours long battery life, and all of that. So the focus shifted from what it means to you to what it has inside, from experience to specifications, from simplicity to complexity. And that brings us back to where we started. Simplicity is genuinely hard because it requires discipline at so many different levels. And that's why most companies struggle with it, while a few make it look effortless. Because it's never effortless. The simpler something looks, the harder someone worked to make it that way. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next one.